Welcome to the table for the Friday, August 16, 2024 installment of Market Plus. Joining us again, Naomi Blohm. You took a trip this week across Wisconsin. I took a trip down into Missouri. What I've seen in two different trips down there, there's a lot of green, there's a lot of great pastures, a lot of areas look really good, southern Iowa. Talked to a lot of people in Iowa this week at the state fair. They're very bullish on the size of the crop. Are you getting that from your sense of driving this week?
Yeah, absolutely. It looks really fantastic. And so my husband and my son, who are, not as tied into agriculture as I am, even commented how great the crop looked between Fond du Lac to Madison to Platteville. And then, of course, later in the week, I went that same route all the way here to Des Moines, and it looks lovely. It is beautiful.
Did you bring up how the crops look first, or did they?
So actually, Oscar, my son,
He did.
yes, he said, "Mom, that's beautiful corn, and it's very even, and it's very tall." And I said, "Yes, yes, Oscar, you're right."
Oh, you have to be so happy at that.
I know.
I waited a long time before I said, "Oh, that looks really good. There's going to be good hay crop there," wherever it was. So the regular people are talking about how good things look. Is that good or bad on a market?
Well, I think it just confirms what the market's already traded. So in a sense, it's old news. We know it's a big crop out there. It's in one regards, it's something really to celebrate. We have clients who are in a sense so optimistic and so excited for how big their crop is going to be. It could be a record for their family, and that's exciting. It just stinks that the prices are, of course, so low, but that's because we have the perception of plentiful supplies. So, just like 2014 to 2019, when you have big supplies, you have low prices. You can't have one without the other.
However, there are those who are on the other side of this right now, and that's our first question. Seamus in Iowa. How can the yield get bigger every year when we have the worst weather and no one is spraying bug dope and fungicide? And we have heard this, not too terribly far from here in Des Moines, that's happening.
Yeah, it is, of course, tricky for places that have had way too much rain and they're struggling. Or there are still places that are on the drier side. And so you can't spray in the normal fashion that you'd like to, and you're not seeing the big yield numbers that maybe everybody on the Midwest is talking about. And that's a very real concern. And, my heart goes out for that situation. Maybe depending on how large of a situation that is locally, it becomes reflective in basis. Maybe those regions have smaller production. And so maybe your basis will help make up for it. But with crop tours next week, most likely going to just in general confirm it's a bigger crop. Now, is it going to be 182 or is it going to end up being at 185? It's a big crop, no matter which way you slice it. So I think that's what we need to focus on, not get lost in the detail, but the reality of 2 billion bushel carryout.
Well, I've used this line a couple of times. I think Arlen Suderman said it, plan for the 85% good, the crop being 85% good, not 15% bad type thing. Like there's going to be way more good than bad this year, which gets into George in Kansas a tiny bit with his question. Have the corn farmers started moving their corn out of the bins?
Yes, there has been a lot of grain moved over the past 3 weeks. Absolutely, it's been coming to town, and now you're seeing that reflective in basis values in many portions of the Midwest. But we're not done yet, and I think that we're going to get the next big push over the next 2 weeks, because that's when the September basis contracts have to be fulfilled. That's when September futures contracts go into first notice day, so people have to decide if they're just going to price it and be done with it and dump it and get rid of it, or are they going to try to hold it and then roll it into December? So there's a lot of things to take into account of that in terms of cost of storage, interest rate costs, is there carry to capture? So there's going to be, I think in the next 2 weeks, again, more grain coming to town. And once we get this flush done, then as we head into September again, then we can start looking for that harvest low, as I was talking about on the show, because we're going to have cheap value here. And the end users have to be drooling and just excited about how cheap of, corn that they're able to secure for their needs. It's been how many years from their aspect that they've been able to get corn at these lower prices. So the end users will show up, demand will pick up, and then we'll get our harvest low.
Well, we're showing you the corn chart. We're below 4. So I guess I'll flip in one more question about fat cattle this time. It's Bradley in Nebraska. Have fat cattle prices peaked, or could we see a rally late in the fourth quarter for the Christmas holiday?
I think what is going to happen with cattle is that it's going to be a slow move lower for prices. So because we have, I think overall still decent demand, especially heading into Christmas, our exports have been okay. That's what's going to keep prices firm overall. But you need to really understand that the whole chart is shifting. And so now this is like your equivalent of when we had $8 corn, and then it was $7 corn, then it was $6 corn, and all of a sudden you look backwards and you're like, oh, there it went. There it was. So we're in that window. Hey, cattle folks, this is your equivalent of $8 corn. You can still lock this in, and I would be locking things into 2025 because we've beat the drums long enough about the tight supplies. We import cattle. Our cattle imports are up year over year. That is a fact. And with prices high still at the grocery store, the beef that's in demand is ground beef. It's not as much the steaks anymore, especially as we are heading into back to school. The grilling season is done. You know, when we get into the holiday season again, we'll see those types of things have a demand uptick. But I think just in the short term, you have to have more of a defensive mentality as a cattle producer.
What about South America and beans? So Gary in Wisconsin has the question. With South America having quality issues with soybeans, could the U.S. have a chance to export some beans and soybean meal?
So the question there is more about quality in terms of crushers like American beans best. They like how it breaks down for the oils, for the meal side of it. American beans are the best. So that has become something that people are talking about in the world. It's not that it's a bad crop in South America. It's just not as good as the American. So it's a better quality. You're comparing, you know, Walmart to Whole Foods kind of a thing. So I think, though, when we have that soybean market push, that one next price push lower, that's when you're going to see China show up because they want that high quality. They love North Dakota beans. China loves North Dakota beans and the Minnesota beans, and that's what gets exported out the PNW. Mm-hmm. So I think they're just waiting for that one more price drop, and then they're going to start buying those North Dakota beans like crazy and get them across the ocean.
So it might not be a political reason they're not buying, it's finances and how much it is.
Well, absolutely. And we're all watching the same charts. And so we're all watching, okay, one more price leg lower, and then that's the final ticket for buying. And then I think you're going to see that, again, that export sale market really pick up.
Well, let's get into some other technical things, shall we? We're skipping politics, moving on to Dal in Texas. Why do farmers refuse to cover their total cost of production calculated by the historical APH? Okay, no, we did get political. We have two more that are that way.
I think the answer is hope. That's the answer.
Yeah.
So it's easy to know what that number is, and it's frustrating to say, oh, it's only a small profit, or only it covers my break even, but look at what you had years ago. And so then there's this hope of one price rally to come, 10 more cents of a rally, or hey, maybe something's going to go bad with the weather somewhere else around the world, or the whole, it's an election year, so the price has to rally, which isn't true, by the way. So hope is the answer. So you have to put your business cap on instead and be a little bit more aggressive with your marketing.
All right, let's talk crop insurance then. Glenn in Ohio asks us via X, in regards to crop insurance, October is the discovery month for fall harvest prices for corn and beans. With lower prices and record yields projected, what can or should producers do to protect or enhance their investment in these crop revenue policies?
This is such an important and timely question because there does seem to be a very strong tendency for the price of corn to start to rally higher during the month of October for this very said reason. So when you have low prices, farmers are thinking, well, at least I'll get an insurance payout. However, if the prices start to go higher through October, that doesn't necessarily happen to the tune like farmers are hoping. So if you are in a situation where you are comfortable with using futures or options, when we see our harvest low, and hopefully, it's going to come here in mid to late September, that's what I'm watching for. That's your sign to look at some type of a reownership strategy for what you've sold, but also in a sense to protect that insurance price, because if the market price goes higher, you're not getting that insurance payout. So you're going to be looking at buying December call options, potentially December futures. Again, all of these things have risk associated with it, and you need to work with your advisor on that, but that's how you protect it.
We have two questions. I want to ask Phil's first, because when I don't ask Phil's question, I hear from him, but we love every question. At a certain point, these bearish grain markets will end. What's it going to take to make it happen? Which commodity will break the trend first?
So it's going to take a weather issue, because we need it to be from a production side. Overall demand for global commodities right now is good. It's solid. I don't know if there's going to be just a sudden burst in uptick demand. So for a burst of an uptick demand, it would have to be because of a geopolitical threat where people suddenly want to stockpile again. So if that should occur, that could create the demand side of it. But otherwise, it's got to be production. It's got to be bad weather in South America this winter, or we would have to see something bad happen in the United States weather-wise next summer.
And then I'll ask you this to close.
Okay.
Scott in Wisconsin, what commodity would you like to be long on?
Wheat and corn in about 3 weeks. That's it.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you making the trip and the time and the insight. Always good to see you. Naomi Blohm, thank you. Next week, we are going to take a look at clothing manufacturers surviving in rural America while others have unraveled. We'll also have the commodity market analysis with Chris Robinson. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.